themselves the Elite.
If not us, who?
A little bit of the bubbly.
And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
This is an official declaration of war.
Change the world.
We are going to change the whole universe! This is what you call a paradigm shift.
This is a family! This is a revolution! We can never stop!
All Elite Wrestling!
For the 33rd time, it's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for the next chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
What's up, dude?
Happy Halloween, my friend. It's wonderful to be back here with you. A very spooky week of AEW content. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Jonathan and I are two friends, fans, lovers of professional wrestling who are here every single Friday morning with all the latest news from All Elite Wrestling. Thanks to our EVP, Chris Genro, and our supporters on Patreon. Patreon numbers, again, climbing this week. People are coming out to support the show, and we could not thank any of you more for those that have contributed, but we could always use more friends over there helping to make the show better every week. So if you want to help us, head to patreon.com/seeingtheelite. That's patreon.com/seeingtheelite and subscribe. Get a ton of awesome perks within the community, as well as bonus episodes, access to show notes, getting to watch us record the show live. We hope that you'll consider joining patreon.com/seeingtheelite. A note to Patreon members, I did last night record a watch along with Anthony, my real life brother, who'd never seen an episode of the show before, and it got ruined by a number of factors, so it's not going to be up this week. We're gonna record a makeup next week. We're not going to do it all the time. We're probably not even going to do it often because Anthony, incredibly busy. But I think it's a cool perspective to bring in now and then, kind of a new angle, and you'll see it at least this one time. I cannot promise more than that.
Just once.
This is not a sports entertainment show. It's an entertaining sports show supported by fans like you from all over the world. On YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars. Just like Meltzer, it makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy.
Too sweet. Facebook.com/seeingtheelite. Twitter @seeingtheelite. If you really want to be in on it, tinyurl.com/seeingtheelite is our Discord server group where people are having wild discussions. Even this week where I couldn't be there because I was recording, everyone talking about the show, and I went back and read it all and was like, oh my God, guys. Shout out to the champ, Pumpkin Skull, over there for a little bit longer. Someone's got to take him on at Full Gear. Maybe he'll come out the champ, maybe he won't, but if you win, he is offering a free t-shirt to the winner of your choice from shopaew.com. So that's exciting. JD on the time codes as always, but I couldn't get a quote this week from anywhere. Searched the internet, scoured the internet, couldn't get a quote from anyone that wasn't Marty the Moth, which seemed not terribly related.
But dude.
Marty the Moth saying, I want to try my hardest to be on AEW, which, you know, him and every other wrestler in the world right now, except for RVD, who apparently thinks AEW is a step down from Impact, which, man, he's reached a new level of high. So I'm going to read this press release instead, and we're going to talk about it because we would have had to talk about it in news anyway. AEW today announced a new tiebreaker stipulation for its World Championship title match featuring defending champion Chris Jericho taking on the American Nightmare Cody at the Full Gear pay-per-view event in Baltimore on Saturday, November 9th. In the event there is no winner at the end of the 60-minute time limit, a panel of 3 esteemed judges who will be seated at ringside must vote for a winner. In the event that it is not a unanimous choice, the majority decision will be the winner. This will ensure that a draw will not be the outcome of this World Championship match. Full Gear will be live on pay-per-view Saturday, November 9th, 8 p.m., 5 p.m. Pacific time, and is available for purchase via in-demand, cable operators, DirecTV, Dish Network, and Bleacher Report Live. International fans can purchase the event at ITV Box Office and Fight TV. This is a really interesting and fascinating idea to do for a wrestling match. Now, this seems like just a way to introduce 3 celebrity Hall of Fame wrestlers and then never use them, because I can't imagine they're going to go to 60 minutes. But
dude, if they go to 60 minutes, man, that's gonna be intense and a little rough. I mean, it's hard to do a 60-minute match. It's a steep ask.
Yeah, a 60-minute Broadway, nonetheless, right? Like,
yeah, I'm also expecting them to do just a full 3 guys, and if you look at some of the people that have signed on for StarCast, it's like, okay, we know pretty likely who the judges are going to be. That's fine. It's a good stipulation to add, especially for later in the company history, because it's something that's going to probably be needed later. Mm-hmm. And it definitely sits there to prevent you from having, a bullshit finish of the first title defense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like it in that even if they don't use it, it makes it so they have to choose a winner, right? So it's almost them.
Exactly. You can't have just, it's a no contest because Jake Hager interfered.
Right, they're keeping themselves honest, almost booking-wise, by announcing this. So, I guess they're not, though, because they're not saying that the judges would make a decision in the case of a disqualification either. So I guess it could still be.
Well, it's intentionally kept vague about that,
right?
So that they can really use it as, okay, crowd's real hot, crowd's really behind Cody. Mm-hmm. We have stories in place to go both ways.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Run the interference. Okay, crowd's pissed. Let's have the judges make a decision kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what they end up doing with it. Really indicates that they might be thinking about going 60 minutes, which would be outrageous if they managed to do that.
I mean, if you look at the card and and for anyone curious, the commemorative poster has gone up on sale on Pro Wrestling Tees. They showed a sort of what the card's going to be there and general matches, and there's really only 5 matches. So when you start looking at, okay, we also have a pre-show, because we'll always have a pre-show. I'd be very surprised if they went, oh yeah, every other quote pay-per-view type event has had a pre-show. If this one doesn't, that'd be a little fucky.
All these big pay-per-views have been 4 or 5 hours, so.
Yeah, and I mean, not even the big ones, but like since before we started TV, that's all we really had.
Right.
But it'd be very fucky for them not to have a pre-show. Mm-hmm. And since there's only really 5 matches that look like it from the poster, obviously things can be added that just aren't on the poster. That's an easy thing to do.
Sure.
I would be surprised if they went the full hour or a solid 45 minutes for the title match. And, I know Jericho can do it. I'm sure Cody can do it too. It's hard, but it's definitely possible.
It would definitely be a statement to go that long. WWE very, very rarely goes that long. Very
almost
rarely.
Never.
Yeah, almost to the point where saying almost never is probably the right call. That's a distinctly old school wrestling house thing to do. So I would be very impressed if that happened. Let's talk BTE number 176, Merch Freak. Cold open to Nick Jackson, who, despite a recent loss, is showing off a magic trick to Private Party, where he makes his best-selling merch appear out of thin air, correctly spits out Private Party's selected card. Following this is a testimonial with Private Party. This is all very reminiscent of a show that used to air on A&E. Cue the Chris Angel Mind Freak intro spoof, which, if there is anything in this world that I love, it's jokes about Chris Angel Mind Freak, which, if you've never seen this show, is an outrageous television show about a Vegas magician who really wants you to think that he's cool. And I love stuff like this to death. Make jokes about how the opening to the show, which they spoof here, is this outrageous thing with Chris Angel screaming into the camera and shit. And I make jokes about it all the time about Chris Angel Mind Freak, about him constantly on the show being like, oh, here's a trick for you. Mind freak your friends. Like, trying to get this verb that he's created over as if people are going to be like, oh, man, you totally mind freaked me. So Chris Angel, I've been making Chris Angel jokes for years, and to hear BTE make Chris Angel jokes is amazing. And I loved it. We then get the title card. Out of the title card into a dressing room, Cutler is on the phone with his wife. Cutler says, I love you too. And Kazarian says, do ya? He then continues, is that Denise? You should love her. She's a great woman. She makes the best gear in the business. He says,
we had two really, really good ones this week.
We did. He says, I'll call her back and tell her. Then there's an awesome arena shot of Cody during his entrance from behind with all the pyro going off, which I thought was great. Pre-entrance stuff with DDP and MJF as well, which was cool to see. There's a short segment here. Everyone is in line at catering. Peter Avalon, Rick Knox, Bryce Remsburg, Orange Cassidy in the back. Leva Bates comes up and...
Just looking like a straight fucking zombie in the back, too, man. It was funny as shit.
Just chilling. Leva Bates comes up and sweetly cuts in front of Peter Avalon. Bryce Remsburg says, aren't you going to say something, Rick? He says, I really don't care at this point, man. This is great. I love this sort of a depression-changing character for him. There's more arena stuff here. Cutler walks up on the Bucks after their match with the Best Friends and tells them that he thinks that they've found their edge again and that he's proud of them for doing so, which is kind of interesting, but I don't really know where they're leading with that. It is a reference back to a couple of weeks ago, so maybe it's just to tie that off. But funny little scene in the trainer's office here. Best Friends enter to get Trent's arm looked at, but they have to wait because Orange Cassidy's thumb is being examined. The trainer tells Cassidy that he needs him to, quote, take it down a level or two next time. And Trent says that Orange is asleep. The trainer says he is. Trent lifts Cassidy's glasses and he's staring straight ahead, and Chuck says, oh yeah, he's asleep.
Yeah, this was fucked up. I loved it, and I'm hoping that we get more stuff with Chuck, Trent, and Orange Cassidy because they're really starting to steal the show. I
think they're great. They're so great.
I want them to have their own YouTube show at this point.
I do.
God, it's fucked up, man.
Hangman is walking down the hall talking on the phone about horse penises with somebody.
As you do.
Yeah. Cody stops him in the doorway of his dressing room that he has, and says if he's talking about horses, Cody is happy to talk about horses because it seems like they haven't talked about anything in a long time. Hangman says they haven't talked because Cody is in his own dressing room. Cody says, I do have my own dressing room, and Matt and Nick have their own dressing room, and Kenny has his own dressing room. Does that bother you? Hangman says no, but this is the third or fourth time we've heard him bring it up in conversation with people, so clearly it does bother him to some degree. Cody,
I mean, fair.
Right. Cody says that Hangman is welcome in his dressing room anytime. He says, if your mind is wandering towards somewhere where you're not with us, I've been there. I took that walk. I would not recommend it. it's interesting to speculate what he's talking about here. If he's talking about WWE, if he's talking about when the Bullet Club exploded, right? What exactly he's mentioning here. I think either way, it doesn't matter. The point's the same, but kind of a wink and a nudge there.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same. It's like they're very clearly building to this. Paige is going to leave because he feels left out kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see when and how they do it because they've kind of gone a little bit back and forth, but even still, it's like, okay,
yeah,
he feels like the odd man out.
Hangman says once again, we're good, man. And then says, good luck with Jericho. I hope it goes better for you than it did for me. Hangman does a quick hand slap, but doesn't follow through with the fist bump. And he walks off, leaving Cody clearly feeling like words were left unspoken. There's a weird librarian segment here. Peter Avalon is hungry after his match. Leva suggests that they get a Big Mac after having read that Pittsburgh is the original home of the Big Mac earlier that day. Bitchy Peter Avalon asks if Leva also read that Big Macs make you fat, and then exits, leaving Leva to feel sad, I guess. Really don't know what the point here was. And it feels like they're just continuing to throw shit at the wall here.
I don't even feel like they're throwing shit at the wall. It's just like, okay, that's the same shit they're doing in the ring.
Yeah.
Like, Peter clearly hates this gimmick. She thinks it's awesome, and it's like, it's not funny, it's not cute. I
just don't know why.
I don't know who does.
We worked hard to get to this point where it was like he hates it and she doesn't, and now we've been treading water with it for a long time, and like we're kind of waiting for what the next part of this joke is. The rest of the show is post show footage from last week, which got broken out into its own video on the AEW YouTube channel this week. It's more jokes about the merch, as well as Cody using the make him say as a chant with the crowd, which is awesome. And I hope he continues to do it. They're giving away merch items, dented chairs, Cutler's shirt they give away. The crowd starts chanting Cody's watch. And Cody's no, he's not about that at all. He does offer his tie, though, and MJF tries to keep Cody from throwing out the tie. And Cody says, this is a good teaching moment. I'm going to tell you the most important thing that was ever said to me. And he says, make him say, and then throws it out into the crowd, which is great. For the end of the episode. One of 2 BTE episodes this week. As we'll get to the second one at the end of the episode because it was just dropped today. But apparently this is something that they do every year, this Halloween episode. So that was the whole point behind it, and why this episode all of a sudden had like better production values in a lot of ways, and like the segments on it seemed a lot more planned out than they usually are, right? It seems like more time was put into them, is because it's Halloween thing, and they do this every year. A bunch of information about Anthony Ogogo was kicked up in the news cycle this week. He did some business with some of the boys at an indie show. We could be seeing him sometime soon. Anthony Ogogo, for those that don't remember, is the retired Olympic boxer who is training with AEW to become a worker for them. He's interesting as it's their first experiment with not just hiring an indie wrestler and sort of building a proprietary star for the company.
It's also a little weird with the, since Crown Jewel happened today, and the big thing about that was Tyson Fury, also a boxer.
Sure.
So it's a little odd, but they did announce this a long time ago. It's not like this is just news this past week. I think it came into the light more because of the Southside Wrestling thing, where Cody and a bunch of guys went to because WWE, pulled the plug, and I think Anthony Ogogo showed up at that show, possibly.
Yeah.
It's still some interesting stuff, and I'm curious to see where it goes. It's still way too early to tell anything, though.
The thing about because people have made the comparisons, of course, people coming out to be like, oh, so it's okay when AEW does it, but it's not okay when WWE does it. I think
there's a big difference here.
Yeah, you'd be ignoring very, very clear parts of the narrative here if you're saying these are the same situation. There's a difference between bringing a guy, training him to be a wrestler, and hiring him to work full-time, and bringing in a guy for a single match because the Saudi Arabian prince wants to have real sports stars on the show. And in the case of Cain Velasquez, a guy who's wrestled one match ever, and it was a 6-man tag. Or in the case of Tyson Fury, a guy who's never wrestled a match for a big payday match in Saudi Arabia, and then having him fuck off forever, basically.
It has been brought forward that like the Saudi prince wanted UFC, a UFC event was turned down, so he made demands to Vince about a UFC fighter appearing or a retired UFC fighter appearing. Same with boxing. He wanted a boxing event and was turned down. So he's like, okay, Vince, get me boxers, get me MMA fighters. This is what I want. It's very clear who's writing the narratives here for anything regarding any Saudi show for WWE. And it's just becoming more despicable with each event.
And there's a difference between developing a guy who comes from that background and shooting him into the main event to appease the Saudi prince, right? Like,
yeah,
a big difference there. But yeah, the guy didn't cut his teeth on the indies, but I think you're a little daft if you felt like that was going to be how everybody was going to get to AEW. Like, people are going to come from everywhere, like any wrestling company. So
yeah. They're going to give, if you can prove yourself, they're going to give you a shot. I mean, you're not going to get a baller multi-million-dollar contract until you prove yourself.
Right.
But you're going to get the chance to prove yourself.
There was a, quote, big, end quote, announcement this week that AEW will be returning to Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida for the January 1st edition of AEW Dynamite. Which is shocking to me because January 1st at that venue, for people who haven't been there, it's a giant outdoor amphitheater. And I understand it's Florida, but I was under the impression that Florida people believed that their winters were cold.
I mean, it is Florida. It's not, cold like you and I are used to at that time of the year.
Sure, but it's still cold. It's still cold enough that people who are from there wouldn't want to go to an outdoor event usually.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what I was getting at. Like, you and I, we're used to like some real deep cold being in Boston that weekend or around that weekend. Florida in January, while not that level, is still pretty fucking chilly outside, especially for an evening outdoor show.
How chilly? Like 40? Are we talking about?
40s, high 30s ish, around that range. So it's like, it's not something you really want to sit outside in for multiple hours.
Sure. I mean, maybe they have the opposite of those giant fans they had in July. Maybe they.
I'm sure they will have some sort of heating system, but still, it's like when you're outdoors like that, and you have a heater on you, but you probably still have a jacket on you. So it's like you don't want to take your jacket off, but you don't really want to keep it on. It's that weird area. So it's a very odd place to be doing a show in January.
Well, I'm just worried about the tickets because obviously they have reason to believe it'll be fine, right? But unless you've been to a show there in the winter, then I would imagine you would look, if you're from Jacksonville, you would be like, January 1st for the show? Fuck that, right? Unless you've been and it's been fine before, right? So
it's also the big thing is, they do not have to pay anything for this venue at all. So
so it's a win anyway.
If it's not a good seller, not a big deal.
Right.
And since it's January, New Year's Day, they're probably not expecting a really good crowd anyways because, let's face it, most people are pretty hungover on New Year's Day.
Right.
Even into the evenings. So, and also don't really want to go out because went out the night before.
Right.
So, being that they're at Daly's Place, it's a free venue for them. They don't pay any rent because, the Khan family owns that. So it's like, okay, cool. Whatever we do sell will be extra. Mm-hmm. If it's not a good sellout, that's fine. If it isn't sellout, even better.
They could set that venue
the way I'm looking at it.
They could set that venue up for less seats than they had at Fight for the Fallen.
And I'm sure they probably do have plans to, partition off parts of the arena to address that kind of a concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that their production concerns are probably more than they were when they did Fight for the Fallen as well. So,
even still, this is. I'm not even. I'm sure many people will chant, doom and gloom about this show. Like, oh, it's not going to sell out. No one's going to go. It's going to be an empty arena. It's like, okay, they didn't have to pay $100,000 to rent the fucker.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. I just think it's rather strange to have it at an outdoor venue in the winter, even if it is Florida. This came just after news broke that the Christmas Eve edition of AEW Dynamite will be a clip show, basically. JD and I will likely also be off that week. Not because we can't really make the recording work, because our recording would be like the 26th, which would probably be fine for both of us. It's just that there doesn't really appear like there's going to be a whole lot to talk about.
Well, I mean, no, we couldn't really record the 26th.
Why?
You have to go to Boston.
On the 27th.
Are you not going to Night Zero?
No, fuck that, dude. You know why? I'm going to tell you why. Just like Dennis Stamp, I'm not booked, so I'm not going.
Fair enough.
But,
I'm not going anyways, but that's...
Yeah,
I don't want to record on Christmas, and
we'd be able to do it on the 26th, and if there's a situation arises where we feel like we need to, we may, but I don't necessarily think that we will. I
have to work, so
yeah. I hate to miss a day a week, but I think that's probably the most excusable week to miss, where they're not even doing content. So they might do a BTE, but I think we'll be fine to sort of talk about it in passing on the following show. Let's talk AEW Dark. Sonny Kiss and Dustin Rhodes versus Peter Avalon and QT Marshall opened AEW Dark this week. Another week, another Peter Avalon promo that doesn't go over very well. Leva grabbed the mic at the end of it and shushed Peter Avalon and then says, "That was for all of you guys," which also didn't go over because this whole thing is weird. The crowd was just confused.
Because it's just fucking dumb, dude. Like, we talked about it for 3 weeks now. Like, these are don't try to pull these bullshit promos. They don't work.
And
the other in the fucking 70s.
Yeah, and the other thing with AEW Dark is that I think it's wonderful that we're seeing this content we didn't get to see that happened. If it doesn't work or isn't very interesting, I don't have to see it. Like, you can just cut it from Dark. I don't have to see it.
You can, and it's clear that they did cut stuff from Dark with the second match, but it's also like the way I'm looking at it is like, if you're using Dark as a way to try things and get stuff out there and get more guys matches, awesome, great things. You have tried something with Peter Avalon on Dynamite and on Dark for 3 weeks in a row, and it's not clicking anywhere.
I want to make it clear, because we've talked a lot about the Librarians at this point. Leva Bates and Peter Avalon as performers, I really like. I really like both of them. It's the writing of this gimmick and him going out there and cutting these sports-centric promos that I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, and I don't like it.
Also, it's very jarring to me and very striking to me because you have Cody and Jericho and all these guys out there who are clearly, and MJF, who are free-forming their promos and just rolling it. And you can tell, like, Peter Avalon is trying to do the same thing, and he's just falling into the same pattern.
Well, he's not free-forming at all. You can tell he has a list of jokes to tell, and then when he's done, that's what he's got.
It's like, dude, if that's the best that you can pull together, stop.
Yeah, I don't.
Because it's like I'm saying, like these promos worked in the 70s.
Yeah, if he came out and didn't do it next week, I wouldn't miss it. It seems like they almost acknowledge it with what happens later on Dynamite. But Sonny Kiss and Dustin Rhodes together, though, is the best tag team I never knew I wanted.
Same, dude. I love their gear matching. That was so cool.
They're gear matched, and they were awesome together, and it makes sense, with Sonny Kiss being the only Exotico in the company, with Dustin, of course, making a career as one of the only Exoticos in a company, right?
He made being an Exotico a thing.
In America, yeah. And for a long time was the Sonny Kiss of WWE, was the only person doing that kind of thing, except for a few people here and there, but I think it's really, really smart if you're looking for a guy for like Dustin to take under his wing. From a story perspective, it makes so much sense, and I love that. That it seems thoughtful in the way that that would be his choice, right? I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and they also have very complementary wrestling styles that made the match pop even heavier for me, and I really enjoyed it. They're a great tag team. I would be down if they decided to keep that matchup. Obviously, with what happened during Dynamite, it's kind of on pause for a while, but
sure.
I'm in for this. QT also really impressed me with his ring work. We know he's been out of the ring for a very long time and been in more of a coaching role, but he's still a fucking solid worker.
Yeah, this is the second Dark that we've seen him on. It seems like he'll probably stay on Dark for a while.
The first one.
Second
Dark.
Second Dark.
No, this is first Dark. He was on Dynamite this week.
That's true. He was on Dynamite this week. That's where I saw him the second time.
This was his first match that they brought because he was on Undesirable to Undeniable.
And they talked about it and hyped it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, okay. You're right. It is.
I know I'm right.
It's a fun little tag match. Dustin and Sonny Kiss, who people on Reddit are calling Kiss from a Rhodes, which I think is awesome. Get the win.
Baller, dude. I'm down.
Get the win over Dustin and Avalon, or when Dustin pins Avalon in the center of the ring. It was a good little match, worth watching. It suffers from the same thing all of these matches suffer from this week, which is that sort of AEW Dark, like, tell me why this is happening thing, and that's hard.
For this match, this is like what we've talked about, that the first match of the night on AEW Dark is the one that happens pre-show, and that match should be designed and intended to get the crowd hot.
Yeah.
This definitely did it. So, 3 out of 4, we're really working towards that goal.
Allie versus Penelope Ford versus Sadie Gibbs versus Sakura. Looks as though they've dropped Emi Sakura's first name for whatever reason. I thought that this match was okay. It could have been so much worse, although apparently it was edited fairly heavily.
Heavily. Yeah, I've been reading about it and from reports. Yeah, I take it with a grain of salt because, Reddit, but yeah, apparently this match was a massive botch fest, and Sadie Gibbs was one of the worst offenders of this. Since we didn't really see it, there's not really much I can say. The parts I did, what we saw in the match, Allie and Sadie Gibbs were very, very sloppy. I've been reading a lot about Allie and her run in WWE, or not WWE, Impact. She was heavily protected and very much in a story-driven role.
Sure.
And when she wrestled Tessa is when it kind of came to light, oh yeah, there's a reason why she's been fucking protected. She sucks. So, whether they cut off a lot of this match or not, it was an okay match.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, considering, I will say Sakura's thing about her Freddie Mercury gimmick that she's doing, tailor-made for me. Nobody loves Freddie Mercury more than I love Freddie Mercury, right? But it's almost like, when Rey Mysterio would come out as the Joker or Captain America or whatever at WrestleMania. It's almost like if he did that and then he just continued to come out as that character forever, because she's doing
the same one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's my issue with it as well. Is like, if she wants to do the Freddie Mercury thing, cool. Switch up your gear so that you're not doing the same exact thing.
Right. Or for a special occasion, do a Freddie Mercury thing and then go back to normal gear. But she's so far in this thing, and maybe it's super over in Japan. Queen, a very popular band in Japan. Certainly less so over here, although the movie coming out recently helps. But she's doing, the stomp, clap thing. She was doing AOs in the ring, which like part of the crowd caught on and part of it didn't.
It fell flat. It just really fell flat.
It's really weird. And I wish she would kind of get her own thing, because I think I like watching her in the ring, but she's kind of going too far with this tribute to this one performer. And again, would be totally okay with it if it was something she'd done for one pay-per-view and then done something else or gone back to her own thing. That's not how it's happening.
Yeah, and that was like what you and I talked about initially. Is like, oh, cool, she's a Freddie Mercury impersonator, and she's paying tribute. And we thought it was going to be, just for Double or Nothing, and then it was like, oh, okay.
Oh, every time. Oh, she's going to do it every time. But it was fine. She got the win over Penelope Ford with a Tiger Driver. Again, I thought. Day, man. I thought the match was decent considering the talents in the ring. I enjoyed the match, but word on the street is that it was edited pretty heavily. And whether it was or not, it was fine. Undesirable to Undeniable with MJF is up next, and it was great. Short, but great. MJF tells us a pretty sad story of anti-Semitic discrimination by school peers, how it fueled him to become a better wrestler and man. He shares his joy in knowing now that the bullies who threw rolls of quarters at him and called him Jew boy are now struggling in life, while he's, quote, famous, rich, best friends with the coolest guy in the world, and ridiculously fucking handsome, end quote.
This was very enlightening to me, because like this is the first time we've really seen MJF like come out of the super cocky personality and be like real genuine about his upbringing and stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, given he did flip right back into it, but it was still like he had that humble moment, and that's the little thing that you need. You can't just be that.
Sure, he had
all the time.
He had the humble moment right after being asked, when did you feel undesirable? And he said, honestly, in my wrestling career, never.
Never.
Which I loved. I thought the segment was short and sweet, but I think it was really important for his character.
The spots with him and Cody just be like, yeah, this is my best friend in the whole wide world. Isn't he great? It was fucking amazing.
You could tell they're just playing around with each other, which was great. The chemistry there was awesome. Next is a promo from Kip Sabian. It's fine. It's a promo for his match where he tagged with Hybrid 2 versus the Elite on Dynamite. His point is very simple, that beating the Elite is an important step in AEW, but his delivery seemed over-rehearsed and kind of hokey and lame.
Yeah, he was very over-rehearsed. He seemed very nervous. Alex Marvez didn't help matters because he also sucks.
It's almost like seeing bad CGI. Like your brain just knows when somebody's really confident in what they're doing and when they're faking it.
Yeah, I'm kind of giving Kip a bit of a break on this, because it's when you're talking to a cardboard cutout that's trying to interview you and you're already nervous because you're still kind of new at this. It's a lot more intimidating than it really is. So I'm really giving Kip the benefit of the doubt on this. I think he's got some good promos in him, and I think he's the clay that has all of the things that you need, and he just needs someone to help mold him, and he will get there.
Yeah, he needs to figure out what he's doing, but he is new, and it's clear that it's a lot of like pieces just haven't fallen into place yet with him, because his delivery doesn't seem like somebody who's going to be bad always. it's just little things. He moved his hands around too much on the screen, you know, in a way that would be unnatural if he was really talking, right? So
it was definitely the Ricky Bobby thing of like, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands.
right. You know, and some of his deliveries were just a little overly sarcastic. The other thing with Kip Sabian is that he seems like he's a babyface and then he says heel things, and I don't know
it's very
why
strange.
that is.
It's yeah. I think he's trying to be a heel, but like creative is like, nah, dude, you're a babyface. Shut the fuck up. We're telling you we know better. And he's like, no, I'm gonna be a heel, so I'm gonna say some heel shit. And I'm like, dude, no.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best place for him. He seems like a pretty easy babyface character, but whatever. Darby Allin versus Jack Evans versus Jimmy Havoc was a great three-way match. Suffers only a little bit from that AEW Dark like match for no reason problem that we talked about earlier. Probably going to be an extenuating thing on this show. Makes it hard to get hype. I wish that they had a place and they do. All it would have taken is a few words from somebody in this match to really make it feel like, oh, okay, I know why this is happening now. It doesn't just feel like, hey, we're having this match because these guys are here and we haven't used them on the real show. I thought it was a great three-way match, though, between these guys. And I love that they're breaking out guys that they've logged as tag team performers to also be singles wrestlers, because the singles division on AEW is not the weakest of the three divisions, but it's not the strongest one either. So I like the idea that Phoenix or Pentagon could be used in a match, or any of the SCU guys could be used in a match.
So Jack and Angelico could stop doing tag and go as singles.
Yes.
They've both done that in the past. We've seen it.
Right.
Pentagon and Phoenix could also, but the Lucha Bros are way more over right now, so they're going to keep them as the Lucha Bros. Right. I think SCU is coming to a point where it's going to be, Scorpio is going to kind of break off a little bit and go singles, because that kid has so much fucking potential. It's not funny.
He's amazing.
So it's a little bit of a strange thing. I don't expect to see any, solo Pentagon matches in the near future, as long as the Lucha Bros are so hot.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting thing. I really, really enjoyed this match. I thought it was the best one of the three. Jack Evans being in this match just made it better, because he shit talks so much. And Darby and Jimmy Havoc already have that antagonism and hatred towards each other from the number one contenders match, and it was just such a good triple threat where they followed triple threat rules so they could just go and do wild shit. I loved the whole thing, man.
Yeah, I thought it was great. The match ends after Havoc pile drove Evans through a table that he had sort of hung up on the ropes, and then Darby coffin drops onto Havoc's pin with a steel chair and then just steals the pin over Jack Evans, which I thought was a really cool finish to it, and really feels like that sort of the thing that's great about the three-way dance, or the triple threat, is that at any time what you think is going to happen could not happen, because there's this sort of combustible Edison added into the rest of what would be a normal match. I thought it was cool, but again, I wish there was more reason, at least behind the main events. It felt like when we got started on this show, like Kenny having a match with Janela, there was a purpose for that, right? There was a reason you could justify why that match was happening, and it felt like a spillover from the other show. These don't really feel like spillovers from other shows as much as they feel like other exhibitions that didn't make it.
Yeah, and I think we're coming to the point of like they will figure this out. It's just going to take a little bit of time and some feedback, and I think they're getting a little closer to having all that.
Dynamite for 10/30/19 from Charleston, West Virginia, the first wrestling event to be in the town in 20 years. It cold opens with Tony Schiavone on the executive airstrip waiting for someone to exit a private jet. Dustin and Cody are the ones to exit the plane. Cody and Dustin say their goodbyes to one another, and Shivani and Cody walk to a limousine. They then shoot a recap of last week, including what happened after cameras went out, as if it had aired in the first place, which is kind of interesting. After this, there's a great scene of Mox walking to the back. He's told that Tony wants to see him, walks down the hall, still pissed off, muttering to himself about time limits. You know, he throws a chair. He's really the type of guy, I feel like if anyone had walked by him in the hall, they would have turned around and walked the other way.
Fuck yeah, you would have. This guy's a fucking psychopath.
He enters Tony's office, and Tony tells him that his match against Kenny has to be unsanctioned. And it's great because Tony's kind of excited about this. Tony's like, hey, it's unsanctioned. Like, that's what you do, right?
That's because, like, Tony is, like, damaged like we are. He's like, yeah, it's unsanctioned, man. It's going to be fucking nuts. Aren't you excited about how nuts it's going to be?
He assumes that Moxley's going to be like, unsanctioned. Oh, nice. I can, you know, I'll be set free. I don't have to deal with the rules. Of course, they're not sanctioning it because AEW refuses to be held responsible for this match. Either way, but it greatly upsets Mox. He talks about he's like, oh, I've been working for this for a long time, but he's upset because an unsanctioned match will not affect his win-loss record, or in his words, it won't count, which means if he wins over Kenny Omega, it's not going to be like a real win over Kenny Omega that's recorded because it's unsanctioned, because it's lights out. He says, quote, you're going to make me a freak show. You're going to treat me just like everybody else. You won't sanction me. I'm unsanctionable. What happens to Kenny Omega now is on your hands. All right. End quote. Editors know unsanctioned means it's closing the show, right?
That's how I would assume so, because that's the only way you can do that.
That's how they've done the other two, right? If they do lights out in the middle of the show and then they're like, okay, lights back on, that's going to be weird.
Yeah, that's not how that can work, because it really is that, okay, it's lights out, we have to close the show because AEW is not going to, you know, sanction this match. It's just happening. So yeah, that can't just happen in the middle of the event.
I would not think so, but then again, I would imagine they want to end with the title match. But
well, they are.
Right. And then there's another match after, right?
Which also makes, you know, when you think about that title match being a 60-minute thing, like, yeah, that shit ain't happening.
We then hit the theme song for the show, and we head into the first match, Sammy Guevara versus Hangman Page with a 15-minute time limit. I'm beginning to think that I don't personally enjoy Hangman's wrestling style, which is a difficult thing for me to admit, because I like his character and his promo, and I even like him as a personality a whole lot. I think he's great. But I've seen a few of his matches here in AEW, not really familiar with his New Japan work, and I think his style is just kind of too slow for me. That's not to say that he's bad, because I think he is good, but...
You do prefer more lucha-esque type wrestling, where it's very high-flying, high-paced.
Yeah.
Know. So, I mean, that makes sense. I really like Hangman's style, that he is more slow and methodical. Mm-hmm. So it fits well with me, but, you know, we have different, you know, we both came up on different things, so that kind of influences a lot of your taste.
The point I'm trying to make here is I'm not wrong in feeling like he's a much slower pace than a lot of the guys who work here, right?
No, and it's not that he's a slower pace because he's a step behind and trying to keep up.
No, that's not the point I'm trying to make at all.
Oh, I know, I understand.
Yeah.
He is a slower, methodical, old school type wrestler, like Stone Cold, Jericho, Flair, Dusty, even Macho Man, where you are slow for a reason because your moves make an impact. Like when he hits that buckshot, you know, those guys are flipping over themselves because he's, you know, hitting them so hard that you have a high impact style.
Hangman pins Guevara off the buckshot lariat. You know, and the match is great. For what it is, Guevara's style is, of course, the complete opposite. He's a very fast, very high flyer type wrestler. So it was kind of an interesting clash of styles, and it seemed strange to me. But he grabs the mic after the match. Paige acknowledges that things haven't been going well for him lately, but says that tonight he felt good. And at Full Gear, he's going to do some real cowboy shit, and he's going to take Pac's head off. The picture-in-picture runs through the commercial, but it just recaps what we just saw. Seems like kind of a waste, honestly. But they also run
they did
a
it
back.
All night, though.
Yeah, all night it was like, oh, here's the picture-in-picture, and they weren't really doing anything, which was unfortunate. They also run a backstage segment with Private Party that we didn't get to hear the audio for, which seemed like a bit of poor planning. Fight TV guys got to hear it.
We're kind of to the point now. I think their production is like, okay, cool. We know where some of our, in betweens are gonna have picture in picture, and other ones won't. So, but we don't know which ones because it's all down to the timing. But TNT is like, yeah, fuck it, do it all through all of them now, and it has that feedback loop hasn't reached, production crew, which I think next week we will not see such issues. That's my hope. Yeah,
did they do it on every commercial this week?
Just about, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was every commercial break this week. And it also could be because TNT was like, yeah, fuck it. We're going to get shit on all over in the ratings. It's the fucking Game 7 of the World Series. Do whatever you want. We don't care.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Shauna versus Hikaru Shida. They had a 15-minute time limit. Out of nowhere debuts Shauna. And she is awesome. I thought she was great. Yeah, has a 3-year contract. I really liked the match. It was one of the better women's matches we've seen in the company. Shida supposedly
many people are saying this has been the best women's match we've seen. I'm partial to agreeing with, a little bit in between you and others because it was a very, very good match. I really enjoyed it. It was both of these women, and it was very telling to me that I think the part of the problem in the Joshi matches has been Riho. Mm-hmm. Because Hikaru was like on fire.
Shida's awesome. Shida is so awesome, and I cannot wait for her to be really in this company. She supposedly has less than 10 matches left in Japan, and then she's moving to America full time. The other thing about her is that
I can't wait to see it.
Her English is good too.
Mm-hmm.
She speaks. It's clear that she's not from here. But she speaks fine enough English.
Very good English.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like Nakamura. When Nakamura first came over and he did a couple promos, it was very like, okay, English, but you have to really learn, timing and enunciation and how some of the pretenses and tenses work. But like if you watch a more recent Nakamura promos where he's got that down because he's been over here for a little while, like it's very clear that you pick it up quickly.
I think she's as strong as that now. I watched a video from her Snapchat or whatever where she was talking about she's like, people say I have a bit of a British twinge to my accent because I learned English from Harry Potter movies with the English subtitles on, is what she said. And you listen to her talk and you're like, oh yeah, some of those words are kind of British.
And that's kind of that's a little bit of the things. Like she's a little rough around the edges now, but once she moves over here and stuff, like her English will be on point. And
she in the ring, she's one of the better performers that they have, if not the
absolutely.
best. And her ring gear is awesome, and I'm ready for her. I think she's awesome. And Shauna, first time ever seeing her, she's the Portuguese perfect athlete is her sort of gimmick name, right? And she's great because she comes from a different background. She's not a Joshi or an American wrestler. She's got a different thing going on. And I thought that she wrestled like super well too. So I'm excited that she's in the company now and has a 3-year deal. According to, she revealed it on some some site in Portuguese did an interview with her, and she apparently has a 3-year deal. And it was cool to see it out of nowhere surprises. They seem to be really embracing that as a company, as like really trying to every week have like, oh, here's a surprise thing that happened that you weren't expecting to happen, like DDP last week, right? So that's cool. Sheeta pins Shauna off a Shining Wizard for the win. She hit it the middle of the match. Sheeta jumped off a chair and hit Shauna in the face with a running knee. That was so fucking brutal, man.
Dude, that was so stiff. It was insane, man.
What follows this is a Brandy Rhodes segment that seems like it was torn directly out of a Lucha Underground episode. In everything, in the lighting, in the subject matter, in the way it was directed and shot, like it was like, oh, some motherfucker's been watching some Lucha Underground, because
yeah, like you could have put Katrina in that, and it would have been like, okay, yeah, makes sense.
She's apparently going this sort of dark Death Princess thing, which makes sense. You know, the other week she announced she's not going to be at ringside for Cody anymore. Cody's Twitter response was, looking forward to whatever you do next in your career. It seems like they're giving her this other character, this sort of dark witch character, and maybe you could chalk this up to just being a Halloween thing, but with what happened last week, this seems like a legitimate thing they're doing with the character, which is very, very attractive. Oh man, it's I don't understand. I'm not usually a thing for goth chicks, but holy crap, this thing for me, I was like, whoa, Brandy, where were you?
where did this come from?
Yeah, where did this? I never would have thought of this, but now here it is, and I'm like, oh my god, yes. You know, how do you feel about Brandy Rhodes sort of embracing this sort of darker character now?
Let's do it, because that was amazing. I really enjoyed the whole segment. I feel like they've really been looking for a character for Brandy to have that wasn't the almost Stephanie McMahon character. Mm-hmm. You know, kind of evil authority. I'm the lead bitch and you're gonna do what I say kind of thing. And they found it, and it's awesome. I'm really, really down to do this character, and I want to see more of what they're doing with it. Yeah.
I thought it was really, really cool, man. And it genuinely excites me that they're willing to take a risk like this, because she is still the branding officer, the chief branding officer, right? So it's kind of like, okay, let's do it. Next, Chris Van Vliet introduces the Rock and Roll Express to present the tag team titles. According to them, they defeated Ole and Arn Anderson in this very building some 33 years ago. Just after sharing this proud and powerful attack with loaded socks, loaded with what we don't know, nickels, whatever they had in there. Then powerbomb Ricky Morton through the stage, and finally the Bucks come out to make the save. I thought this was interesting. They didn't really pay it off later either, but I guess
no, not at all.
The point is just, I mean, I guess it helped Proud and Powerful seem like a tag team that, like with what they did later, that's just sort of a looming threat around the arena for anyone that's.
They kind of did pay it off a little bit with that, but it was still a little off and a little odd that, like, okay, they brought those guys in for one reason, and you guys, shit whipped them. Okay, cool.
It didn't really seem like much of a point to it, other than it would mess up the show and that would piss the Bucks off, right?
And that's kind of what it felt like. Is like they don't give a shit about who they're going after. It's that we're fucking the Bucks.
Right. We see the start of a match with QT Marshall and the Beaver Boys versus another 3-man team, but then we cut to a scene with Cody and Tony.
I really thought you guys were fucking with me last night when Alejandro was like, I recognize the Beaver Boys, and I was like, the fuck are you talking about, man? And I was like, Oh my god, that's actually their name. What? Oh my god.
It's not their name on AEW, but that's what they wrestle as on the Indies.
Yeah, because you can't fucking say, yeah, we're the Beaver Boys on national television.
But so we cut to this scene with Cody and Tony Schiavone, who are still in the limo and on their way to the arena close to 40 minutes later.
Limo.
Right, sure, right. And so I guess the executive airport is very, very far away from the arena in Charleston, West Virginia, where I can't imagine there's a ton of traffic. But anyway, they're still in the limo.
Are you going into story, or are you fucking with me? Because like if you watch the window,
yeah,
the window repeated itself like 6 times.
In story, we're in story here.
Okay,
it's funny that they did this in a controlled environment because the audio was not great. And so you'd think if they did this on a soundstage in front of a rolling screen or whatever, that the audio would be better, but it wasn't.
Sometimes, not always. Shit happens.
Yeah. There is a long discussion between old friends here. As noticed by Reddit, this is a direct reference to an old WCW scene between Ric Flair and Gene Okerlund in the run-up to Starrcade 93, I think it is. And
that sounds right, yeah.
This segment is really cool and tender, but it's a bit of a tough sell on TV, and I felt like it ran a little longer than most people at home would likely have patience for, unless you really have deep nostalgia for WCW, which some of the people watching the show do. A lot of the people that they're aiming for don't. It was a little bit of a strange one, and like, even I have a lot of nostalgia for WCW, but I was still like, okay, let's go. Yeah, this is a long time. Long time to spend on this.
Yeah, a little bit too long in the tooth. And they keep referencing that something is going to happen, and that this match has such big implications. And part of that is from when Cody was supposed to announce it last week, but we're still really hinting at this match, so it's very, very interesting to me.
And to be fair, in the segment that they're referencing with Flair and Okerlund, it had sort of the same tone, I guess, because Flair was, I assume, readying to leave WCW at that point or whatever, because they talk about, this might be the last time that you're working one of these matches or whatever. I don't know. I
think it was one of the supposed Flair's leaving things, but not really leaving.
Okay.
I can't really remember. That was fucking 30 years ago.
The overall message here in Schiavone's plan is to make Jericho wait for them because, quote, the star always enters last, right? And they pay this off later, but before then we have a best friends match versus the Beaver Boys and QT Marshall, which was after about the 3 minutes that they spent in the limo, which, again, probably a minute and a half too long. We cut back to see the best friends, and they are dressed like 2 Ricks and a Morty. And their entrance video is intercut with Rick and Morty clips, and they even got Justin Roiland, who voices the show's titular duo, to do the ring announcing for the best friends in character. It was fucking awesome. And for anyone who didn't see the show, I don't know why you'd be listening if you didn't see the show. The ring pads were Rick and Morty themed. People in the audience had Rick and Morty masks, and they weren't just like basic Rick and Morty masks. Like, they had different Ricks, which, if you watch the show, is part of the lore, right? I thought everything they did here was like really cool, and really smart, and I thought it was a great crossover. Especially to use the best friends, who are like the obvious pick for if you're doing a Rick and Morty crossover. It was a great little fun match with enhancement talent.
I felt the same way. That I know a lot of people were very annoyed, Meltzer, with the whole Rick and Morty thing.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
I didn't mind it. I thought I was like, yeah, fucking deal with it. TNT, this is Warner Media. Rick and Morty is one of the biggest shows on television right now, and the new season's coming out.
Yeah.
They're going to fucking promote it any way they can, and this is the target demographic. It was also just a lot of fun that the way they brought it in. They, for fuck's sake, like a lot of people on Reddit, because Excalibur was being a troll on commentary last night, and he handed JR's like, "Hey, can you please just say this?" And had him say Rick's catchphrase, and he's like, "Okay, cool, I'm out, I'm done." This was like, that's the kind of shit that you need in a wrestling product aimed at 18 to 30-year-olds.
It's so funny that Meltzer would complain about that when he's constantly talking about, oh, wrestling, it isn't as popular. Why isn't wrestling as popular? A big reason why is because it doesn't touch pop culture anymore. That was a big thing for Broadway, and it's been a big struggle for Broadway. Not to go too far off the subject, but Broadway has had this issue for a long time where Broadway hits used to be pop hits, and for some reason they traveled away from that into their own little fart smelling cloud, basically. And now the only time you see Broadway come out with a legitimate huge Broadway hit is a show like Hamilton, of course, is obviously one of those big shows. It ties in hip hop and has that real pop music feel to it. Or it's like a concert show in that it uses the songs of a popular artist. Or it's something like the Book of Mormon, right, was a big hit because it was the South Park creators, right?
If Book of Mormon had been written by anyone else, that would not have been a hit.
No one would have cared. In order to make the product relevant in the mainstream, you have to tie it in with everything else. It has to be a part of this. Well, especially with wrestling. I don't fundamentally disagree with the idea of guest hosts, of bringing people in. I think wrestling should be kind of like the Muppets, in that wrestlers exist in the world around regular people. They are, what they do is a show, but they are really those people in real life, right? And so it's like when the wrestlers went on Saturday Night Live, right? Like, stuff like that should happen. The reason why it doesn't work, or didn't work when WWE was doing it, and seemed lame when WWE was doing it, is because the people that they picked were Kathy Lee and Hoda and fucking Bob Barker and people that were like,
fuck you, Bob Barker worked. But it
that
was
were like, what the fuck? This is not tying into the demographic that's watching this show, especially at that point where they were like children and the 18 to 35 they were looking for. If you're looking for 18 to 35, like, Rick and Morty's in there, and Meltzer doesn't really have a place to judge because he's not in that demographic anymore. So
right, and that was the problem with when WWE was doing this. It was that it was so out of touch, and it was so forced.
Well, that's the difference between a great idea and a lame idea can often be execution, right? Little things in the execution. So
by doing the Rick and Morty thing, they did it on the Halloween show that ties in. They did. It wasn't a very noticeable thing. They had the one match. It was one match. Yeah, the ring posts and the turnbuckles were Rick and Morty all night. That's called corporate sponsorship. Shit like that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's no different than there being advertisements on the ring mat or whatever, right? Like, which is very common outside of America. So
exactly. So, like, other than you saw the random Rick and Morty masks throughout the night because they were given out to the entire crowd. Yeah, it wasn't really talked about. They had the one. It was like the Jay and Bob thing. We talked about it for a few minutes, and that was it. We moved on. We didn't stay forcing this one thing and how important this one thing is and how we have to keep talking about it and bringing it back up. It was one and done. It led to another thing. That was it.
I will be honest. The biggest letdown for me with this particular episode of the show is I don't think that they really did enough with Halloween.
They didn't.
I could have used more. I would have liked it if there was more Halloween sort of decoration about the show, and I would have liked it if every performer had a costume of some kind. maybe more will be put into that in the future, but I personally felt like they were like, oh, Halloween episode, and it was more like kind of a Rick and Morty crossover episode, and you wouldn't have really known it was Halloween unless you knew or listened to the commentary or whatever, right?
And I think next year, even though it'll fall at a different time, next year you're going to have a lot of Halloween type stuff. Because I feel like they wanted to do some Halloween stuff, but they didn't really want to go full on, Halloween Havoc.
Right.
That level, while they're still trying to prove themselves. And, as we know, a lot of this stuff for tie-ins and costumes and all this stuff is done many weeks in advance.
Yeah.
They probably weren't anticipating the success that they are having. They were probably looking as like, okay, let's be modest with this, so that in case we're not doing great, that tie-in will help, and it's not overly stressed that it's Halloween. And I feel like a lot of things that we see now and going forward, like this year, it's going to be a little tough, a little rough around the edges. But next year, where it's a very proven thing, they can really, dress it to the nines.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to imagine, because here's a show that, last week, due to extenuating circumstances, outdrew Fox on fucking FS1, where it was moved to. And so we're having all this huge success, but it's 4 episodes in. There are 4 episodes into this series.
Yeah.
So,
and while they are way more successful than the initial projections, that's just even better. And
yeah.
I was reading an article, like, TNT and Warner Media, they made out like bandits on this deal.
Oh yeah.
But when it comes around, if AEW maintains this level of success, they're going to be paying a steep price to keep this on TNT.
Well, yeah, TNT is going to be paying a steep price. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's
their
going to
TV
be
rights.
The television rights renewal is going to be very, very high.
Well, yeah, they got it for as low as they did because it was an unproven product. It could have sucked, right? Next time they go up for negotiations, it's going to be a very, very different story, unless it flounders in the next 2 years or whatever. But I really don't see that happening. Everyone who was like, AEW's got 6 months, they're already past that. I mean, when you're talking about TNT was expecting 500,000 viewers and they got 1.4 million in the debut.
Yeah,
they're already going to the end
place.
of this contract.
Yeah.
they're not falling off anytime soon. And the ratings are dipping, and we'll talk about the ratings later, but it's not a problem. Trent pins John Silver after they hit him with the strong zero for the finish. Pretty quick match, enhancement talent. Didn't really mean much. It was just there to have some fun with the Rick and Morty characters. And I know, like we'll talk about in a moment with the other tie-in, if I'd been watching this with my friend, I mean, I watched it with my brother who loves Rick and Morty, but if I'd been watching this with my friends, they would have been like, oh, what the fuck? They would have thought it was great. So,
and the best moment of the match, Orange gets in, starts his normal moves, goes after it, does the backflip. Bryce Wormsberg with the assist on the sunglasses to make sure that's staying on, and then the three-way hug. It was gold, man.
We then move into the contract signing. This contract signing between Jericho and Cody will be done on the stage as opposed to in the ring. I thought that was cool that they did it in a different way, even if it was kind of arbitrarily different.
It's different enough to make it feel, okay, this is a little bit more legit. We're not putting a table in the middle of the ring and doing all this horse shit. So
I still would have preferred they did it as a pre-tape. I understand why eventually that they ended up doing it live, but I'm not terribly fond of live contract signing. I think it sounds like a joke on paper, and then you do it, and unless you flip the table over, it's typically pretty disappointing.
Which is funny.
This segment kind of acknowledges that several times, but there were some things I really liked about the execution. The first one being Jericho's fucking jacket. It's just,
dude, have you
outrageous.
See his Halloween costume on Instagram?
No.
Okay, he's wearing the jacket, but now he's got some fake eyebrows and a wig on. looks like a molester.
Cody and Shivani pull up in the limo after Jericho is already on stage, and they do make him wait, like they said earlier. Again, I think it's great that they set that up and then knocked it down. I just think the setup was really long. I really like that Mega Perrick is seated at the center of the table. We've seen her before, and I love this piece of legitimacy and continuity. She's the senior vice president and chief legal officer of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and she serves as a legal official of some kind for AEW as well. And I love that she was seated at the table for the contract signing, and it was her. It wasn't an actor. It was their legal consult, right?
Legit lawyer, not bullshit.
Right.
She is a legitimate lawyer.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool, and I love that they did that. Cody signs the contract without saying a word and hands it to Chris, which was nice because I saw him sit down at the table, and I said, God, I literally said out loud, I hope he signs it and then just doesn't say anything and just passes over like, I'm ready for the match. And that's exactly what he did. Jericho glances at the contract and then makes a move like he's going to flip the table and then stops and points and laughs at how Cody just like sprang up at a mere gesture, right? The crowd chants, "You suck" at Jericho. He responds, "No, I don't suck. Skivone sucks." Or Skiavone, he calls him, right?
That was gold.
Jericho's little promo, complete with the pen click, is great, where he's basically talking about like this is your first time having a real main event match, and it's because it's with me, you know. And they had a great stare down as well in front of the screen. Those are some things that I liked about it. Jericho says, "Hey, we can stand here all night, but you might be needed elsewhere." And just then a video pops up on the screen of Guevara and Hager, who are in the parking lot, beating the shit out of Dustin. I love that Hager kneed Dustin in the balls during this bit. I think that's so... For those that don't know, he had a match on Bellator.
His, like, whatever, second or third, whatever Bellator match. And supposed to be like another highlight reel finish kind of a thing. But he fucked it up and kneed the guy in the balls. Oh, excuse me.
3 times.
3 times. Once as a warning.
Yeah.
Twice, okay, you gotta fucking stop. 3rd time, fight's done.
Yeah,
come on.
He kneed the guy in the balls, and the ref was like, I don't know, that might have been the balls, but it looked like it was the inner thigh.
Could have been a thigh.
Right. Yeah. So we're gonna err on the side of caution here. Kneed the guy in the balls the 2nd time, and the ref was like, whoa, dude, what the fuck, stop. Which I don't understand why at that point you don't stop throwing knees entirely. Like, just clearly you're having trouble.
Yeah, that's when you're supposed to. And, like, not only that, but you've also given your opponent 5 minutes to recover.
Right. 3rd time, he fucking nailed the guy. And he dropped it. Of course, he like threw a fucking hissy fit about it too. He was like, "Oh, he really sold that, huh? Oh man." It's like, I don't know, dude. I just think after you get like dinged for kneeing the guy in the balls once, you're like, okay, maybe like don't throw knees into the midsection anymore. I understand that's hard to say if you're in a real fight, but
dude, okay, these are not real fights. Okay, yeah, it's a real fight, but this is not like a fight like where you're trying to fight for your life. Mm-hmm. This is still a judged martial art sporting event. If you ding a guy in the fucking cup twice, stop throwing the goddamn knees, dude. It's not working. Punch him in the face. What the fuck's wrong with you? Like, and it's to the point, like, when I watched the fight like 3 times,
right?
Even the hissy fit, it was like, okay, I knew I was gonna get my ass whipped if I really went full bore on this, so I took the easy way out, and now it doesn't. I'm still a badass.
I mean, I guess I don't know a lot of badasses that knee dudes in the balls 3 times, but I don't know. Like, maybe
you know what I mean. It's like
maybe you could tie it down to like the height differential. Maybe he was trying to throw into the midsection, and and ended up throwing in the balls instead. But I don't know, man. I was watching the thing because I watched the thing many times because it was fucking hilarious.
The first one, sure.
Right.
Second one, even, okay.
Maybe he's green enough at that sport that, like, he got in there, realized the guy, because when he was trying to throw in the midsection, he was hitting the balls, and then, like, just isn't good enough to, like, change his strategy because of the way that he's coached. But I don't know. I was watching the thing. I was like, oh, man.
I mean,
I would just stop kneeing. Okay. Why don't you just stop using your knees? I don't get
because
it.
Here's the thing: is like you know, 100% you hit the guy in the cup because there's no person in this world where a muscle or a muscle group is gonna feel like the plastic or metal of a cup.
Well, there's no other part of the groin he could have hit that would make the sound that it made audibly into the cameras.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of guys who wear the Muay Thai style metal cups. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, that really hurt my knee.
I love, that's why I love it so much that they put it into this segment with Dustin. He pushes Dustin up against the car and openly knees him in the balls really hard. I think that's great. That's like his gimmick now, is that he knees dudes in the balls.
I guess. And then, you know, with him afterwards, and he slams Dustin's arm in the car and legitimately broke Dustin's fucking arm.
Well, we saw a photo.
Dude, if you got a cast on, come on.
I saw a photo of a cast. I didn't see a photo of a man's face with a cast next to it. You know what I mean?
Fair enough, but still, like, dude.
But it might be real. I doubt that it's real. He in either case, they said that his arm was fractured, not broken. It's not a big distinction, but it is a distinction. Sure. I get the face, but it is a distinction. It wasn't broken. It was fractured. A bad fracture, but still. Whether or not that's true, who knows? Not for us to speculate, but they went the extra mile to be like, this is what's happening now, right? And they'll probably keep him off TV for a while and then have a match with him and Hagar at some point, I imagine.
Which kind of blows because it means the match won't happen at Full Gear would be great.
Right.
He
just does it with the cast on.
See, that's what stands out to me, that they fucked up and actually broke Dustin's arm because they were building to have Dustin be in a match against Jake Hager.
Sure.
And because the stipulation of why Jake hasn't wrestled in AEW is he had to complete this fight first. Right. Okay, fight is now completed. Let's build a match.
Yeah, man. Cody runs up and chases them off as Jericho lights a fat cigar and laughs.
Well, fails to light a fat cigar.
Right, tries to. He laughs at Cody and MJF as they try to get Dustin some help. The Inner Circle leaves in a black Escalade, leaving everybody else behind. What was funny is that you could hear Cody say, "God damn it," and then at one point you could hear Dustin say, "My fucking arm," out loud as the segment closes.
Again, to me is more of like realism because they're gonna get away with a lot of stuff.
Sure,
and F-bomb is not one of those things.
I understand that. Although it is important to note that, like, the FCC has certain rules, but then beyond that, standards and practices are kind of like a per network thing to keep them on track.
Yeah, I get you.
So I don't believe that TV-14 allows one. I think it's low amounts of the other ones and no F-bombs, although I could be wrong. People could hit us up and tell us that.
TV-14, it's...
Well, because PG-13, you can have one.
You can't have an F-bomb.
You can have one. Or you used to be able to have one. Because the Italian Job, the movie Italian Job, PG-13 movie, has an F-bomb near the end. Just one.
Yeah.
But one.
But you usually get, it's for TV, you get Other curse words, you can't say ass. You can say shit once. Mm-hmm. You cannot say fuck. It's always just been a hard thing. Like, even like someone's like TVMA shows they can't say fuck.
Yes, but again, I think that's a per network thing.
It could be, and like, I mean, I would be very surprised if it's not the case.
That's sort of internal policing. People who talk about standards and practices talk about standards and practices. You think it's like a committee that rules over all television. No, it's just like someone who works there that day and like what they're okay with and not okay with to kind of keep on track to the guidelines they have to work to for the FCC.
It's a team of people inside the company, but it still is like it's a very, very much a gray area.
Yeah. But it is funny that you can hear it go, my fucking arm. Was probably legit because you're right. They were building towards that match and his arm probably did legitimately get fractured. So, but that was ridiculous. We then move to a match between the Hybrid 2 with Kip Sabian and the Elite. Kenny's Titantron video cuts to a screen that is done up in the style of Undertale, which, for those that don't know, because there are people who don't know, is a popular... Jonathan, you talk about it. You know more than I do.
It's a throwback to the 16-bit gaming style with 2D characters all made in pixels and stuff. Very, very, very popular game. It's on all consoles and stuff now. It's like ridiculously popular.
Particularly with children. Particularly popular with children.
Sure, and people our age.
Sure. I do not mean that people our age do not like it. I only mean that it's like a sensation for young people.
Yes, and part of that is the art style.
Yeah.
For our age group, is more of the story aspect.
Right.
Another big part of it is that it's a very simple game to play. You don't have to have ridiculous reflexes or anything like that to play the entire game to the end. There's no like gigantic difficulty spike or anything like that.
Yeah. If you're looking for a gameplay parallel that you might understand if you're older, it's like Pokemon Red and Blue, same kind of style game.
Yeah. Sort
or
of.
Any of the old Final Fantasies, kind of like that, but a little bit different, but kind of like that.
More like a Final Fantasy type game than Pokemon, but yeah, it's very much the old school art style and so forth.
Yeah, he also apparently built that game in like RPG Maker Deluxe.
Yeah, entirely built,
entirely in like consumer grade create your own game engine thing
that they sell on Humble Bundle every like 3 months or so.
Just made it in a cave with a box of scraps, basically.
Yeah, there's no code in the game at all. RPG Maker handles all of it for you.
So that's the kind of backup on what that is. We're telling you this to a lot of you. It may be obvious if you're plugged into that section, but we did get people ask about what that was. What this has to do with wrestling? Nothing. It's just Kenny shit. This is Kenny stuff. This is what he does.
I showed this to a couple of my coworkers who are like really big gamers. 2 of them are making their own game in the style of Undertale. They both thought this was the coolest fucking thing in the world.
Well, I showed it to my brother, who's 8. Or no, he's 11. Sorry, my bad. He'll always be 8. He's 11, and he showed an interest in wrestling I have never seen in him before.
Same. I have at least 2 new viewers for next week because they saw this like, wait a minute, they do this on the wrestling? That's fucking awesome. I'm going to watch wrestling now. I was like, yes.
We see 2 eyes in the darkness as text reads, "You remember us, don't you? We're still inseparable after all this time, aren't we? Cleaner." The 2 eyes turn into an Undertale animated version of the New Japan Pro Wrestling Lion. And we see Undertale versions of Hangman and the Bucks and Riho and Michael Nakazawa. And the text says, "Remember your friends?" Then we see a version of what looks like a Bushi. And the text says, "Remember your best friend? He was never on your side." And Ibushi sort of crumbles away as the text says, "And now it's only a matter of time until everyone else goes away too. Doesn't it hurt being alone? Don't worry. We can help you. Join us, and your pain will end forever. And the illusion shatters as a sock flies into the lion's face, which is very Undertale humor style. It says, yeah, put a sock in it, pal. Mind if I tag in this time, Kenny? And a prompt pops up, and a player selects yes, and out comes Sans, who is a character from Undertale. Now, it's Kenny Omega dressed as Sans, and it's funny, people's reaction to this, Anthony's reaction to this was actually like, oh man, it seemed like he was going to bring out a different tag partner because of what it says at the end, right? It says, mind if I tag in this time, Kenny? And then he says yes, but it's Kenny coming out as Sans. Very, very strange wording there. The bigger story here is, this is the first time on TV that they have even alluded to the existence of New Japan Pro Wrestling as something that might come over. And there's a bunch of ways you can kind of read this. They even say this on commentary that you can read into it a bunch of ways. You can either take it as it's just Kenny's insecurities playing out, or as something much bigger than that. And, you know, reports have been going around that maybe the relationship between the two companies is better than sort of first said, right? But what do you read into this, Jonathan?
I don't want to read too much into it, because I do feel like the New Japan, no, we're never going to do anything with them thing has been very much overblown. Mm-hmm. And it's just been a slow burn of, like, New Japan wants to see a proven commodity before they want to sign a contract, as well as they have to let their agreements with, Ring of Honor and so on end, and can't really make, very overt, we're sending guys to AEW. By the way, fuck Ring of Honor. They can't really do that. That's bad business. You want to keep that relationship there in the background just in case. So I feel like it's been very overblown of like, oh yeah, New Japan's so pissed at the Elite, fuck all them, because it's bullshit.
It's bullshit, and they know that the time on ROH is running out, and they also know that New Japan Pro Wrestling plus AEW, that's a fucking power couple.
Yeah. New Japan
that's big.
Plus AEW plus AAA, dude, that's unstoppable. Yeah. But, ROH and New Japan, as AEW has been in its infancy, have had their annual shows. So again, you can't overtly go out and say we're ending the partnership. That's bad business.
Sure. So, and AEW wouldn't want that either, unless they get to a point where the agreement has come to an end naturally. They wouldn't want. Right.
They don't want to shit all over a competitor for no reason when that competitor could become a partner later. That's the way, and this is the way to look at this, is that Tony is a very, very smart businessman. Mm-hmm. Unlike other companies who are very spiteful about shit. Right. So, yeah, I think it's fine. I think this is, maybe it's alluding to some good stuff. I hope so. I'm not going to say one way or the other. But overall, I thought the entrance was really cool. I think it builds up some good stuff towards Full Gear, as well as just next year in general. We don't know what our first pay-per-view of next year will be called, but I think AEW is not building storylines to cap off at one pay-per-view. They're building a very long-running kind of thing, very similar to how Lucha Underground was doing, where it's going to be, Full Gear, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then All Out, and that's like, you're probably not going to have a payoff on some of these things until All Out next year, because that's their WrestleMania.
I think they both have a lot to offer each other too, which is really unique.
Absolutely.
The New Japan Pro Wrestling has otherworldly talents that would work really great for AEW. And I think that's really what AEW's primary interest in. I don't know if they really care about anything else that would come from New Japan Pro Wrestling, but they have great talents who have histories with some of their performers. And it would be great to have them on board.
They care about a lot of the trainers and stuff.
Right, and another market, they'd be getting Japanese people to be watching the show or whatever,
And
so that would be cool. But I think AEW's upside here, I think New Japan's upside here is also really big, because as much as they announced New Japan Pro Wrestling America because WWE was talking about whatever they're doing over there in Japan to try to take that market. So there is that. But while they do have this American branch, I think they know just as well as anybody who studies like entertainment business, Americans do not like to watch foreign things as a rule.
No.
It's a problem. There's a stigma against it for the majority of Americans. That's why you see stuff like The Office remade for America and so many British shows remade for America. Even though they're British shows, they're really not that different.
And
right?
9 times out of 10, the British ones are way better.
Sure. Even like Spaced was optioned to be redone a while ago before they shot it down because it would have been a terrible idea. Like you see that's why you see Alita Battle Angel getting a movie and stuff like they make stuff, they remake. If something's foreign, they're like, okay, most Americans haven't seen it, let's just remake it. In AEW, New Japan has a chance to legitimately, in a non-stigmatized way, break their talents to American talent. That would be a ridiculous uphill battle for them to do on a show that was focused around the Japanese talents.
Yeah.
The Bucks enter in their regular Ken and Ryu gear. It's a really nice trios match, even though it feels a little pointless here. Kenny Omega pins Jack Evans off a one-winged angel. After the match, 2 fans of the Young Bucks in Young Bucks t-shirts and Rick and Morty masks grab the Bucks and won't let go. They tear off the masks at Santana and Ortiz. A brawl into the crowd breaks out, and Kenny chases them off into a commercial. Out of the commercial, Peter Avalon comes out to cut another one of his fucking promos, man. And out marches Moxley, who came to raise hell, just drops Avalon, grabs the mic, cuts an awesome promo about his unsanctioned status. It's really unbelievable to me, the transformation of this guy, a completely different person, an unbelievable, like, top of the industry performer on the microphone.
I mean, just knowing how unhappy he was in WWE, this all really makes sense to me.
And I just can't imagine you scripting this guy who can go out there and just... He knows who he is.
I can. Vince is that much of a micromanager. He is that fucking OCD and paranoid about everything. That's the way he is, and he's done business that way for so long. Because when the Attitude Era ended, and that's when he stopped letting people do what they wanted to do, and the PG era started... He became so micromanaging that, no, you wouldn't let someone like Moxley go out there and run wild. One of the things that was very cool to me is Moxley came straight out of the crowd and just like, no, fuck it. I'm not walking down their goddamn ramp. I'm coming through the crowd and I'm going to wreck this guy. And he's
unsanctioned, right? He's unsanctionable. Yeah. They're not going to put their stamp of approval on what he does. So no, I'm not coming out on your ramp, right? It does, the promo that he gave has me real worried that this match is going to be a fucking bloodbath, because he openly he said, I'm going to bring a brand of violence we haven't seen in this country in 20 years, is what he said. Now,
it's
I find that hard to believe.
Goddamn thing to say it's going to be on pay-per-view.
I was like, Anthony, you going to watch the pay-per-view
with
me? He was like, no.
Nope.
The main event, Lucha Brothers versus SCU.
So I'm wondering, you think this is gonna be like on the level of Cero Miedo 1 and 2?
I think it'll be rough,
because
I think it'll be,
Marty almost died.
I don't think it'll be I don't think it'll necessarily be on 2, because that was outrageous, but I think it'll be hella war grade.
Also, and for those who are wondering, the Cero Miedo 2 match was one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen, and this is a highly edited version of it.
Yeah.
To the point where they actually admit they kind of fucked up a little bit, and Marty the Moth almost died.
I think it'll be closer to like a Hell of War type match that we see. just a lot of violent things used, not like somebody accidentally nicking a vein and bleeding all over the place.
Fair enough.
You know,
I don't think we're going to see the pink meat come through, though.
Jesus. I thought this match was okay. This tag team championship match. It felt weird to me. I would say that it felt rushed, but it went 18 minutes. So
it didn't feel rushed. It was
it felt more like they just didn't have really great chemistry, honestly. And I hate to say that, but
I think that this match was built with having Kazarian and Daniels in mind. That's because that the tournament was built in a way that this match was going to be the end point, and
Right.
it was built with the thought that Kazarian and Daniels were going to be wrestling against the Lucha Bros.
Right.
So when you build a tournament and you build a match like that, because there were some spots in this that it was very clear were very pre-planned, especially the ending, it didn't mesh well with Scorpio being in there.
yeah, I think they had plenty of time to change it, so I don't know if I would chalk that up. But I would say it was one of those matches where it feels like moves were being done, but there wasn't much of a story until the finish.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing with tournaments too. Like you're going towards an end goal, but you haven't. That's the thing with this one is like this was very telegraphed.
Well, it is. I think it's really fascinating that they took out the guy they were going to use, and then conventionally you would think there's two ways to go with that, right? Either they lose because they didn't have the right guy, or the right guy comes back and interferes in the end, and that's how they get their revenge. That didn't happen here. They win without CD ever coming back.
Yeah, and that's what does make it feel a little stranger. It's like you didn't really pay this story off.
Right.
And there's not really a third guy for the Lucha Bros where they can really pay this off as a full trios because
they could get Laredo back.
Yeah, but that's not really the same thing.
Right.
SCU, that's a trio. Lucha Bros plus this other Mexican guy that also wears a mask. That's honestly just being a little bit racist.
But congratulations to you because your bracket was superior
And perfect. Yeah.
I have no problem losing to someone who guessed the whole fucking thing.
And I'm not even mad at the outcome of this match. I think it's a great for SCU to be the first champs. It's
fine.
It's going to be great. It's because that's the beauty of their tag division is there's so many matches to go.
And it's the smart choice because it sucks that the Lucha Bros lost. They can pull the trigger on the Lucha Bros at any time and they're going to be fucking huge.
Yeah,
that's how they are.
They can also use this as, okay, Pentagon's fed up.
Yeah, but for the time being, while they don't really have full-time contracts still.
It's very hard to put the belts on them.
Right. So I get it. It's a little disappointing for me because I love the Lucha Bros like nobody's business. But
same, I completely agree. But when you look at all of the factors going into it, it's like, yeah, that'd be a real bad idea with how much of a crazy person Dorian is.
SCU is a good choice. Let's move on to talk about the ratings. This is the headline. World Series sinks both AEW and NXT's ratings. Decline continues. This comes to us from Tommy Masano at CagesideSeats.com. AEW Dynamite and NXT on USA never stood a chance. Opposite MLB's heart-pounding Game 7 drama, which drew in 23 million viewers. Holy fuck.
Yeah, it's the fucking World Series. It's
the World Series. It's also like the 40th Game 7 ever, right? Like
yes.
They don't always go to Game 7.
It's not like hockey where a Game 7 in the finals is average. Baseball doesn't. As well as the Nationals have never won the World Series. I don't think they've ever made it to the World Series. They were never supposed to make it to the World Series. They came into this as the wild card. So
they won.
Yeah, the Nationals won their first World Series last night.
I didn't watch the show.
No, that's fine.
Dynamite was on.
Yeah, I understand. But yeah, it's the first. So that's why there was a lot of people watching this because it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna see if this is the first time of a team's gonna win this. The other big competition that they had was the Eastern Conference Finals for MLS. That's a big money, big draw for a lot of the demographic that would watch wrestling. I had a good portion of my friends who were like, "Hey, are you watching the game?" I'm like, "No, I'm working right now." Like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm watching wrestling. This is part of my job." Because that was Atlanta United and Toronto. Toronto FC. So that's a big one because like Atlanta won the championship last year. If Atlanta had won last night, they would be hosting the MLS Cup for a consecutive year. That's a big fucking deal. Right. So, as well as other things on TV, it was that they did this well is amazing.
Yeah, per Showbuzz Daily, the October 30th episode of AEW Dynamite netted 759,000 viewers for a 0.33 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic. NXT on USA drew 580,000 viewers for a 0.18 rating in the 18 to 49 demo. Last week, both AEW Dynamite and NXT on USA hit new lows in terms of viewership. AEW picked up 963,000 and NXT garnered 698,000. So the drop here is about
the same.
200,000
ish
that they lost. I thought the losses were going to be so much higher than that. I'm really not surprised, and I'm sure anyone who's like, "Oh no, they dropped again." TNT was expecting a drop for this. They're looking around. They're cognizant of why things happen.
Every single network, when it was announced that the World Series was going to a Game 7, was like, "Yep, fuck it."
The fact that they only lost 200,000 is what's shocking to me.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to lose a lot more. And you'll notice both products
lost about the same
kind of
number.
lose that.
Yeah, it's about a similar AEW or NXT.
AEW lost 200,000, NXT lost 100,000.
Yeah, but you're pushing it to a much lower number on NXT, which is more of a kind of a feels bad kind of thing.
Well, sure. And the other thing about it is that you can assume there is a bottom out point where there are a certain amount of fans, probably around 400,000 or 500,000, who are going to watch NXT every week, regardless of what else is on.
Yeah.
You can assume that that's there for both shows.
Probably about the same number.
Right. So,
I mean, we're two of them.
Sure, right? So people, there's a point where you're like, oh, AEW lost more than NXT did. It's like, yeah, but they're probably coming close to the place where a lot of the viewers that they have now are going to watch every week and are not affected by the fact that other things are running. So that's why they lost less people, technically. The ratings next week will be telling, but...
Another big thing is that, people aren't really taking into account is that this is Halloween week. Yes, today is technically Halloween as we're recording this. There were a lot of people, though, who just weren't home last night for a multitude of reasons of we're having a Halloween party early or we're doing trick-or-treating early because there's a lot of towns and stuff that are doing trick-or-treating either early or late due to weather, which is
up here
never would have happened when we were kids. That would have been... fuck it. You go out. If you want candy, you're going in the snow.
I don't care. Yeah, I don't care if there's 2 feet of snow.
Yeah. So, as well as just like, oh shit, tomorrow's Halloween. I need a costume. There's a lot of reasons why people weren't at home watching TV last night. So I don't really take this as a doom and gloom number. There's so many factors going into this one. And if this were the case... and we're continuing to drop over the next 6 weeks or so, I'm going to be a little afraid, but I'm also still going to be looking at it as like, yeah, it's holiday season. This is what I expect. But, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
But I mean, here we're talking about 963,000 or 759,000, right? And then we're talking about the Nationals game, which they said did 23 million. Like they're playing a whole different game here. Like, there's a live sports contract, and then there's a live sports contract.
Like, literally and figuratively, a whole nother ball game. Now,
right.
Big difference. Fox's base is,
Network. Sure.
Everybody has it.
But WWE on Fox, the same network, did 3 million people in its debut or something like that.
And that was like throwing out so many big guns.
With The Rock on the cover, right?
Yeah. And you could only pull 3 million. That says something.
America's pastime, man. You gotta respect it.
Yeah, I mean,
the top 5.
It'd be this is the equivalent of AEW expecting to pick up 1 million viewers if they were counter programming the fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah, basically. The top 5 shows on cable TV featured American Horror Story on FX, South Park on Comedy Central, the 2 NBA on ESPN games. Yeah, let's not forget that NBA was also running games at this time.
NHL too.
And the Challenge War of the Worlds 2 on
no one
MTV.
Talks about MTV, and God knows the challenge needs to end.
Dynamite would come in 6th place on Wednesday night in an all-important people 18 to 49 demographic. NXT would continue to plummet, placing series worst 32nd place in the 18 to 49 demo.
That's the more telling number, is that AEW, while yes, face competition, they're still in the top 10 on the key demographic.
Yeah, we say this every week. Where they place in relation to other shows is so much more important than the actual number. And I got news for you. 6th place, whole lot better than 32nd place.
Yeah, and when you look at the competition, like American Horror Story on Halloween week, duh.
Sure.
South Park, duh. That's
Okay.
You only got 4 more weeks of that, so that's fine.
Right, 2 basketball games.
A doubleheader basketball game, and then the latest repeat of the challenge.
Right.
Now it's a little, sad that they didn't beat the challenge, but having watched a lot of that when I was 15 to 25, I understand why that is so popular. It's a bunch of beautiful people doing ridiculous things and arguing a whole lot. Yeah, that's entertaining. Okay, I'll watch that.
Total viewership for Wednesday night checked in at 1,339,000 million pro wrestling. What?
What the fuck are you talking about?
The way that's fucking written is ridiculous. 1,339,000 pro wrestling fans. Thank you. And then they shadow dropped this Being the Elite on us. Being the Elite number 177, an Elite Halloween special. Cold open with an animated parody of the first scene in Toy Story number 1. It is fucking awesome, and is the one thing I think people should see out of everything this week.
Oh my God,
all of the references, the little in-jokes are amazing. I was blown away. There's a Mario and Luigi, Stephen Amell Arrow figure is behind in there. There's a Pentagon bust. There's a PWG logo in there. The Young Bucks masks are mounted on the wall that you can see at some point. The jokes about Adam Page and Luchasaurus are awesome.
That was the key thing for me, is like, if you don't do this, Britt, we'll kill Adam again. And they had
Adam Cole, yeah.
And they had the frowny face piece of paper to keep you from knowing who he was. It's like, oh guys, come on, not cool.
Right. Right, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna push this dinosaur guy who's more over than the entire roster, and like Dave Meltzer spilling out 6.5 stars, right? Like, it was just, oh my God, it was so great. And like, clearly whoever made the animation or wrote the script or whatever, like, so many different Easter eggs if you're a fan. Just great. If you love AEW, if you're listening to the show, this was one of the standout things for me this week, where I was like, okay, that was fucking awesome. The whole sequence is about Adam Page challenging Kenny Omega. When the sequence ends, Page wakes up in his hotel room and goes, "Me and Kenny feuding? Yeah, right. I thought last year's Halloween was weird." Page then throws off his blanket to reveal the new BTE Story t-shirt, which is now up on the Elite's PWT shop. Not shopaew.com, but they have their own Elite one, which is jokes from BTE that you can go and check out, alongside the Merch Freak shirt that they put up this week as well. Cue the creepy title sequence, which is, it's black and white and they added creepy voices to it. Next, we see a maniacally laughing Matt Jackson burn the shirt in his backyard pit, saying, "Never come close to me or me or my family again."
The second time, because he fucked up the first time.
right.
He threw it on the fire too fast and made the fire go out, and then even you can hear him like, "Oh, I made the fire go out. Hold on."
Matt is in a great mood all the way to Charleston, even in the airport. Hangman asks, "What's up?" He says, "Let's just say I no longer have the blues." He then isn't still in great spirits when he gets off the plane, when he goes to his hotel room, but then he sees a blue shirt is laid face down on his bed. He flips it over. It's a Power Rangers shirt.
Well, he was so irrationally angry too, though.
Right. He's relieved that it's a Power Ranger shirt, although he is like, wait, why is somebody's shirt in my hotel room? Like, it doesn't matter what kind of shirt it is. It's still not cool. He tucks himself in for bed. He's relieved. He's awoken by Nick, who tells Matt that he's overslept. Matt heads into the bathroom shirtless and then looks down and sees that he's wearing the shirt. He tells Nick, but Nick doesn't see it because he's not actually wearing the shirt in real life. What follows is a t-shirt obsessed fever dream sequence of Matt just falling into a pile of shirts, right, and just covered in shirts. He's really just losing it. There's a bit of a callback to the merch freak at the end here. Before Matt wakes up, it was all a dream, but he throws off the covers and he's wearing the shirt in real life. Then Nick throws open the blinds in the hotel room and yells, "Merch freak," which I thought was amazing. Next, there's another funny Private Party FB Live video that they have a big argument with each other because they both dressed as Spider-Man, even though Gwen promised Cassidy that this year he wouldn't after dressing as Spider-Man for the last 3 years. They come around and they make up and then talk to the chat. Eminem calls them spot monkeys. You know, that.
Did you see who one of the other one was? It was
No.
Randy Orton. It's like nice finisher. Hashtag out of nowhere. Dude, the Facebook Live part of this was so funny this week. Like there was like the normal like the rap stars and stuff, and then
Right.
like, Goku and Vegeta popped up, and then Randy Orton. I was like, "Nice guys, you did it. You win."
A mysterious figure in the background throws off a wig and shows that it's wearing a scary mask of some kind, and both Spider-Men run away to end the video. Interesting to see where they're going to go with that. This next segment is unbelievable. Now Adam Page is in a hallway, and Private Party stops him and gives condolences for Hunter Horse Helmsley, Page's horse from All Out, who passed away this week, unfortunately. He says, "Already I miss him." And then we hear, "Do ya?"
That was the best.
Kazarian then also gives his condolences, says, "Hey, losing a pet's hard. It's going to get better with time."
Then we have what's easily the most fucked up thing they've ever done on this show. And I love that it was Chucky. Because we start off like, "Hey, I think you wrote, did you kill my horse?" And which just for me was just flashbacks of like, he did threaten children.
So he sees Chucky T in the hallway. They stare each other down. And him and Adam Page have like a great chemistry together, acting together. I thought it was awesome. Adam Page says, "You look like an asshole out there tonight." And Chuck says, "You got to say the S word on TNT. That really cheesed me off." Adam asks Chuck why the picture that he drew for Adam looks like it says, "Sorry, I killed your horse," but with "I killed" crossed out and replaced with "about." This, of course, is from Twitter. If you haven't seen the picture, I don't know how you would find it now. But Adam Page had said sorry about it, that his horse had died, and this picture was sent to him by Chuck, where it looks like he might have written, "Sorry, I killed your horse," and then crossed it out. Chuck's defense is, of course, "Simple typo, my friend." as if you could do that. He says, however, if you want to talk to your horse, I know a way you can. And Chuck grabs Hangman's shoulder and stares into his eyes, almost like the Dead Zone or something like that, right?
Something, man. It was so weird.
Paige is transported into a pencil drawing world, and what follows is one of my favorite BTE scenes ever. Hangman's guilt is just immense, and you can just like see all the people around, everyone talking about his dead horse. Jericho's like, maybe if you could have beaten me, you could have saved him, you know? Cody comes out and he's like, make a dead horse say, you know? It's like, and then the horse is like, we could have rode off into the sunset together if you could have helped me, Adam, you know? And it's so ridiculous.
I really hope that the Cody thing just keeps going, because that, like, oh my God, I laughed so hard. It was just like, okay, we went there. All right. Jesus Christ.
They flash back to reality, and Chuck's like, yeah, I didn't kill your horse. Probably old age. And they're like, yeah, probably. He goes, see ya. He goes, see ya, man. And it's just, I thought it was so fucking great.
Funny. I really
and then Hangman exits, and they turn around, and Chuck is wearing a horse head.
Yeah, which is more fucked up. But I really want a really creepy Cody shirt that just says, make him go, and it's like, yeah, I'm down. I will wear that everywhere.
Now Matt is in the dressing room when Kenny comes up and says that the AEW video game is coming along well, but development has changed directions from a throwback title to a brain-beaming VR mobile app.
I have issues with this because this is my industry, and I'm just sitting there, it's like, that's not fucking possible. And I just got angry at it, and then they...
Oh, this is like when they put the cassette tapes in the toaster and shit, right? Like,
this is kind of a little bit of like the next level, because like, that's not fucking possible. But yeah, it's kind of the same thing, but it was like, the funny thing to me, they kept flipping back to Matt and Kenny, and Matt's just kind of sitting there with his head back, and Kenny's just like full-on stroke victim.
Matt and Kenny test the app together. Matt plays as himself. Kenny plays as Nick. They warp into being Matt and Nick in the ring, wearing their Ken and Ryu costumes. Matt's back no longer hurts. Kenny can do a backflip again. He says, oh, that's the first time since Mid-South, right? They do 2 rounds of fighting game type fighting, right? Kind of silly. Just before the 3rd round, Kenny says, I don't know about you, but I'm getting kind of turned on. Matt is very confused by this. He's like,
what?
Okay. Kenny hits Matt with a Thez press, and then he says, I hope this doesn't complicate things, and then goes in for a smooch. Matt exits the game. Kenny wakes up. It was all an erotic dream the whole time. He turns to Adam Page, who's sitting next to him on his computer. He says, I haven't had a wet dream like that in months.
And that's like one of the funny parts is they flip back to like the real life, and Kenny's like doing the same mouth of like,
yeah,
are you having a stroke?
Well, I thought the funny thing was that they flip back, you know, I feel like a different company would have been, they flip back, if they even went with this, but they flip back, and then he's like, like, he's fighting it in his subconscious or whatever. Kenny's just like, no, that was hot.
Yeah, everybody else was like, oh, that was so weird. It's like, nope, Kenny, nope. Like,
and I let Paige like congratulates his friend as he exits. He's like, yeah, man, good job, dude, having a sexy dream.
You did it. I'm proud of you.
Oh man, that was great. That's the end of it. But I thought the Halloween episode was super funny, like throughout, super funny for them, and they clearly put a lot of thought into doing some wild shit on it. That's gonna be it for us this week. That's all we got. Fucking 17-page episode, a huge episode this week. Things are gonna continue to be huge as we're heading into Full Gear. Other than that, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars, just like Meltzer. It makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy.
Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite, Twitter @Seeing the Elite, tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite if you want to be part of the crew. Join our community of awesome AEW fans from all over the world. But once again, if you want to become one of our best friends, one of our inner circle, head to patreon.com/Seeing the Elite and subscribe to the boys. Thanks to all of you who have watched the show live, if anyone's been watching the show live, and thanks to our patrons, Adam Dyson, Alejandro Diaz, Bill Laviolette, Chris Genro, regular Chris, Ale, Avoth, Keith Kazulno, Mikael, and Merman. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Jonathan, do you have anything else for these people before we go?
It's only 11 more months to Trucktober, my dude.
You're goddamn right about that. Luigi's Mansion is out. That's exciting.
Yeah, go play Luigi's Mansion. I've heard so many good things about it so far. Like, it's supposed to be amazing. I'm hoping to get some time at work to play tomorrow.
Other than that, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode of Seeing the Elite and AEW podcast. Go out and change the world.